I just never forget, like, sitting on the bed, on the mattress on the ground, and looking at the wall and just being like, God, this is gonna fucking never change. I had a mother that loved me, a father that loved me, everything that really I needed as a kid. You know, I was like, I just wanted something different. And so, like, at 16 years old, I tried marijuana for my first time. It made me feel like I was a part of this group of guys at school that I thought were cool. I was sitting one day at my church, and I just like had this thought, like, I want to die today and I'm going to shoot myself. And like I went home from church and I had this family dinner and like I shot myself. Obviously I didn't die, you know. As I was going to put the gun to my head, it went off. It was my grandpa's long rifle. It was the only gun we had in the house. I got kicked out of high school. I continued to use drugs and alcohol. If there was anything around that I could get high with, I did. I had a best friend who thought the same way as I did. We just did whatever we could get our hands on, whether it was meth, cocaine, lots of LSD. And like at that time, I'm older than a lot of kids like that are struggling with the disease today. At the age of 18, it was just a thing. Like I decided one day, I remember vividly sitting there, deciding I'm not gonna do this. Like I don't want to live my life as a drug addict. Went on to go to college and live this normal life. You know, I graduated college, I married a beautiful woman. I had a daughter who was everything. You know, I had this life that I thought was perfect. I was driving home from work and like I drove a motorcycle, someone cut me off and I had a severe leg injury. And I had 13 surgeries during that time, and I took prescription pain pills for those surgeries, and I used the medication as prescribed by the doctor. I was at work and I had cut myself on something, and like I went home, get the bandaid, and I remember like specifically looking into that medicine cabinet and seeing it said, you know, oxycodone. I took 2 of them, and I just continued on using opiates whenever I could. My marriage began to deteriorate, my relationship with my daughter. I would stay up late and just do whatever I wanted so that like I wouldn't have to deal with my wife, because like I was unhappy in that marriage. Every day that I could, I found ways to acquire, you know, pain pills. And in my delusion, I would acquire them in ways that were, I didn't have to buy them. I convinced myself that it was okay. Even though I was like throwing up every day, I was doing super sketchy shit to get these pills. For my job, I would be in many people's different homes. So I would find ways to get into even more homes. I never stole like money, I never stole like valuable things. It just wasn't something that, even though it's completely illegal to go into someone's medicine cabinet and take their pills. So I did that for 5 years. I got high, I didn't purchase drugs. I had a successful business. I owned a business and it made a lot of money, so I could go have fun and do other things too. So I started drinking, I started going to the bars, started going to Vegas. And I specifically remember coming home from the casino once. My wife at this point had had several interventions. She had tried everything she could, and like at that point I had lost like our entire life savings. It was somewhere along the lines of over $100,000. The last ditch effort, we went to South Carolina for a job. I was fired within the first 2 weeks for stealing controlled substances from customers' homes. And this was like the 7th job I had lost for that. The people I worked with were like close friends and family. And so they just said, Paul, like, you're definitely not working for us anymore and you need help. I started going to rehabs around this time. I remember the first rehab that I went into was rehab over here in Chandler. And I walked in, I just started bawling. I just couldn't believe that's where my life had gotten to at that point. By this time, like, you know, my wife had left me and taken the daughter and been like, you need to figure your stuff out. So in rehab, 14 days in, my roommate's like, dude, I got some cocaine. Cool, let's do some cocaine in rehab. Surprise, surprise, Paul, it's bath salts. So I get kicked out of rehab for doing bath salts, and I can't stop doing bath salts for 30 days. And I'm living with my parents at this point, and they're poor parents. Dude, I'm waking them up at like 4 a.m. and being like, why is there cameras coming through the smoke detectors, Dad? They never touched a drug or drink like their entire lives. This was just a new thing for them. All in all, I got 7 DUIs, and 4 of them luckily were dropped. But I was serving time in Tent City for like the second charge DUI. Luckily, you know, the prosecutor didn't see that on my record for the third for some reason, because I was probably serving time. And there's no place where drugs are more readily available than at jail. And so like I started using opiates and Xanax again in jail. I didn't want to go down the route of heroin because like I still thought I was better than that. Man, I just remember being really depressed. This was towards the end. Like, I'm miserable. My daughter's the most beautiful person I have in my life, and I don't want her to have to say he died as a drug addict. You know, like those are the 2 things that like I did not want to deal with. I called someone who I knew would answer, and I got into sober living. I quit trying to do the jobs that I had been doing where I made good amounts of money that I thought were so important, and I got a job at like Chipotle for $9 an hour rolling burritos, you know, and like it humbled me a lot. I tried to do it. I tried to do sobriety like the best I could. I was yet able to be honest though. So like I would just get high every couple of months, few months, and not tell anybody. It was during this time that like people who I had been in sober living with at one point after a rehab, like I seen these dudes' lives change. These were like 19-year-old kids who were purchasing homes, getting married. They were doing these things that I wanted to do as a grown-ass man. I tried to convince myself that it was okay to do the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous half-assed and half-heartedly. And I got really poor results from doing that. I went and saw my daughter in Utah. So she was 9. Yeah. It was a very difficult visit. Got home from that visit at like 6 o'clock at night, and then I had purchased meth and heroin. It was obviously the worst decision I could make. And then 2 weeks later, my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She died a couple of weeks after that. So I'm sitting there, you know, I'm not present for my mother's death. I'm not present for my family throughout the whole grieving process. When I speak at her funeral, I haven't slept for 3 days and I'm high on methamphetamines, not making any sense. On June 4th, I'm sitting back up in this same room upstairs at my brother's house. It's where I ended up because, you know, I could manipulate my way into his home. He would let me do it, and I would live upstairs and we wouldn't talk. And I called the same dude, and I said, this time I'm going to do something different. I didn't really have one friend, one person that would answer my calls. My family wanted nothing to do with me after the funeral debacle, right? And I went into sober living, and like, I did the program of Alcoholics Anonymous as honestly as I could. At that job where I was rolling burritos, some guy had walked through who I knew from the rooms of AA, and like I had said, hey, like, I need your help. Will you be my sponsor? And I was super high when I saw him. And he said, go to sober living, call me and I will. And so he walked me through the 12 steps in a non-judgmental, non-aggressive, loving way. And if he asked me to do something, I did it. When I had a problem, I called him and he picked up. It wasn't like it was easy, but like things started to get really good. As I'm going through, I'm at step 9, and I start making amends. I suddenly like have beautiful people in my life. I have friends who respect me and who I respect. My job still sucks, but that's whatever. At that point, I'm working like 65 hours a week at 2 different jobs because I want to like get my license back. Like now I can get my license back. This is the first time in 5.5 years where like I'm eligible finally. Having worked my ass off at these jobs, and I had the money to purchase a car. I had the money to pay all the fines, and like I got that car, and I got the license and the car. I'm doing things honestly. It was just like that good feeling of like the weight off my shoulders that I don't have to do shady shit anymore. Doing the service commitments, and like all of a sudden, just like my life changes dramatically. And after that first year, you know, like 15, 14 months, and like cool shit happening, you know. And at this point, like I had met people, and like we had become a part of a group of guys. We loved each other and supported each other through everything. And I got a best friend who I live with to this day, who I'll do anything for, you know, and I know he would do anything for me. I have a slew of friends who I get to be there for, who call me when they need help and who I can call when I need help. I have really more blessings today than I ever knew I could get, and they're all things I didn't know I wanted and needed. Because like I had that life where I had a lot of material things, and I was still a miserable person. And so I thought the first thing when I was like, I want to go back to AA and get all those material things back. AA has not given me any of those material things. It's given me different things, but those things are just much more valuable. Money doesn't buy the things that I have in my life today that I value. There's been some very difficult struggles that I had to deal with over these last 8 months. And then I went through this low point, you know, where I really had to deal with a lot of self-esteem issues, and really my self-worth was wrapped up in a relationship and a job. After two or 3 months after that relationship ended, and I dealt with some of those feelings that I had, you know, I'm a man that loves himself more today than he did before that relationship, you know? And I feel like I have been so blessed to get the opportunity just to be a friend to people. I had to hear it for fucking 2 years straight, people saying, Paul, you're a beautiful person, you know, before I even considered that it may be true, before I even thought maybe I am not a horrible person. And I started working full-time in recovery. Half the time I know the guys because I've seen them at meetings, or they've come through before and this is their second or third time at our center, at our treatment center. I don't know, but walking into it, I just felt completely at home. And now I believe it wholeheartedly today that I am a beautiful person, just for who I am, and I don't have to be anybody else other than just Paul, and that's cool. So it taught me something that I could not have ever gotten any other way.
Detox to Rehab wants to help as many people as possible and do it the right way. Please subscribe, comment, and like our channel. Thank you for watching.